guys, this is your girl Wakeji Kamore and welcome to Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the time that you get to listen to this. Thank you so much for tuning in today and for staying with me in this Bible summary. Remember, if this podcast is good for you, it could be good for someone else. So share it and unashamedly have the audacity, send it kwa group. Kwani what's the worst that can happen? Kupost link kila siku kwa groups ni kitu ya kutoa mtu kwa group, surely. So anyway, today we'll be reading Numbers chapter 26. Remember, I don't know whether you guys remember how at the beginning of Numbers, all the men that were 20 years and above that could join in the army were counted. I hope you guys remember that. This chapter is a repeat of that. It's time to count the Israelites again after 40 years in the wilderness. So I'll be summarizing this as opposed to reading word for word because this chapter has a lot of names and a lot of numbers, but do stay with me. I'll try and make it as summarized as possible. So after the plague, you remember the plague in chapter 25 that the grandson of Aaron ended by putting a spear through people. Anyway, after that plague, God told Moses as well as Eleazar's, Aaron's son, to complete a thorough census on the entire Israelite community by families. God wanted them to find out how many males were 20 years old or older that could serve in the Israel army. The Israelites that had left Egypt were also counted. So there were so many people that were counted. They were counted in different clans and the different families. And when the census was complete, there was a total of 601,730 men of Israel. You guys remember Abiram and Dathan? These were the two communities officials that had rebelled against Aaron and Moses. They were followers of Korah, and they revolted against God, and the earth opened up and swallowed them. I know you guys remember this story. And the earth also swallowed Korah, and his other 250 followers perished while the fire devoured them. Korah's line did not completely die off. So God also asked Moses to count the Levites as well. So God told Moses that the land was to be given to them, these are the Israelites, minus the Levites, based on the quantity of their names. So there are groups that had 20,000 people. There were the Simeon clan had 22,200, and yet the clan that had the most people was the Judah. Oh, it was actually the Judah clan that had 76,500 people. So God told Moses that the land was to be given to them based on the quantity of their names. The larger group were to be given the bigger inheritance, and the smaller groups were to be given the smaller inheritance. And Moses also had to make sure that the land was distributed by lot. Please remember, all these things are the things that are happening even before they enter the promised land. God is preparing before they enter the promised land. God does not wait until now we are there and then now we have to figure out through chaos. God is like, let's prepare beforehand. Before you enter, this is what you guys are going to do once you're there. So the male Levites that were on one month older. You guys remember at the beginning, the Levites were all counted, and they were counted 1 month old and above. So this time around, they were counted again, and there were 23,000 in total. The Levites were not counted with other Israelites since they did not receive an inheritance. The Levites were counted when they were staying on the Moab plains across from Jericho. None of them were counted by Aaron and Moses when they had counted the Israelites when they were staying in the Sinai desert. So God had told the Levites that they would die within the wilderness. Caleb and Joshua were the only ones that survived. You guys remember the 12 spies that had been sent? So at this point, only Joshua and Caleb remained. As a matter of fact, let me just read the last verse of this chapter so that you guys see what I mean. This is what it means. It says, the last verse, which is verse 63 to 65, it says, these are the ones numbered by Moses and Eleazar the priest, the people that we just had counted. The people Israel counted in the plains of Moab at Jordan, Jericho. None of them had been among those counted by Moses and Aaron, the priests, in the census of the people of Israel taken at the wilderness of Sinai. For God had said of them, they will die. They will die in the wilderness, and none of them will be left, except for Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, son of Nun. So this census that we've just had, 601,730, these were people that had not even been counted at the beginning of the book of Numbers. So, after this really long, detailed list of names, it shows that the Israelites were pretty busy. For almost every single person who died in those crazy plagues and punishments, new babies were replaced. Because we only had a difference of 1,820 between the numbers that were counted at the beginning of the book of Numbers and this number that has just been counted at the end, almost at the end of the book of Numbers, or rather at the end of the 40 years. So at the end of all this counting, we are told that aside from Moses, Elijah, Caleb, and Joshua, no one who was counted in the census in the first census was counted in this census. The whole older sinful generation had died off or have been killed off, and now the new generation is ready to walk into the promised land just as God promised. So this whole story reminds me of Psalms chapter 91, and I'm going to read Psalms chapter 91. I'm going to read the whole of it. You guys bear with me, but we are getting somewhere. Trust me, we are getting somewhere. I don't know what our numbers now, like Psalms 91, but trust me, we are getting somewhere. So it says, he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty, and will say of the Lord, my refuge. To the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. For he will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his pinions, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and a buckler. You will not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrows that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, and nor the destruction that wastes at noonday. Note this verse 7 and 8 says, 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only look with your eyes to see the recompense, or rather the reward of the wicked, because you have made the Lord your dwelling place, the Most High, who is my refuge. No evil shall be allowed to befall you, no plague shall come near your tent. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. On their hands they will bear you up, lest you strike your foot against a stone. You will tread on the lion and on the adder, and the young lion and the serpent you will trample under your foot. Behold, he holds fast to me in love, and I will deliver him. I will protect him because he knows my name. This is God says that he will protect those who love him, and he will deliver those who love him. When he calls to me, I will answer to him, and I will be with him in trouble. I will rescue him and honor him. With long life, I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. I feel like this is exactly what happened in the case of Caleb and Joshua. They placed their trust in God and believed that God was their refuge and fortress, that he would help them conquer the giants that they saw when they spied on the land. And the 10 other spies did the opposite. They refused to trust in God's power and ability, and in doing so, they dishonored God. And in payment, Caleb and Joshua watched while all their age mates, all their fellow leaders, died in the wilderness, falling in thousands in a day. Yet they were spared. Let me tell you guys, I've had difficulties praying this psalm before. I always kind of feel sorry for the thousands that are falling besides me, and I'm always so caught up in my unworthiness of being spared. But God reminds us in Psalms chapter 91 that it is not our good actions that make us worthy to be spared from plagues, to be spared from wars and from earthquakes and from floods. We are spared because we believe in God. If God was to make this about our actions, about our good deeds, we would all perish. But he made it about something that everyone has the capacity to do, which is to believe. To believe that God is able to shield us, God is able to save us, God is able to make us victorious, God is able to heal us, God is able to forgive us. Then just sit and let him shield, let him save, let him give you victory, let him heal you, let him forgive you. My challenge for all of us is to believe and to put our trust in God. And then we will be spared. That is all the requirement that is there, to put our trust in God and to love God. That is exactly what the psalm says. It doesn't say, oh, those who did something great, or those who, performed miracles in my name, or those who, went to church, or those. He says those who trusted in the Lord, and those who made God their dwelling place, those who made God their safest fortress, their fortress, and those who loved God. Then God spared them. So my challenge for you and for myself is to believe and to put our trust in God. This is your girl, Wakeji Kamore, and this has been Reflections by Wakeji Kamore.